Alrighty, so it is my extreme pleasure to introduce our next speaker. And I learn all sorts of incredible things from all of the different speakers that we bring to the Secular Student Alliance Con. But rare is the case that when I am reading a speaker's bio for the first time that I learn a new thing. See, in Erin Carhart's bio, it says something I didn't know. It says that she has the coolest job in the world. I thought I had the coolest job in the world. Turns out I was wrong. I have the second coolest job in the world. But Erin has the coolest job in the world, which is that she works for Planned Parenthood Generation Action, and she's going to talk to you all about how to get involved. She's been involved with Planned Parenthood in various and sundry ways, many of them very focused around campus organizing and around Syracuse and Syracuse University, where she went to school. And yeah, so she's going to tell us all about connecting those exciting things, Planned Parenthood and secular activism. Please join me in giving a super warm welcome to Erin Carhart.
So bear with me. I'm going to attempt to stand behind the podium. I'm much more of a free flower, but I like to talk on my hands, so I'm going to stand here. We'll see how it works for a second, and then I'm going to play around with it, so bear with me. Thank you all so much for having me here. I just got in this morning. I love Ohio, not only because I get upgraded to first class every time I fly here, but I love it because it's such an interesting state where we've got a lot of work going on with the organization that I work for. So I find myself here fighting the state house on a regular basis. But I'm also really excited because I think in this particular state there's a power of young people, and young people have the ability in this particular state to sway how and shift the views of what we think about abortion, and also win back our state houses and win the presidency. So I'm super stoked about Ohio, just generally speaking. So I wanted to share that with you first. But I also have the pleasure of working across the country in various capacities with my organization. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about my path to Planned Parenthood through feminism, through my work at Planned Parenthood, but also through my faith and how I've come to grow and own who I am and my practice of my beliefs. But before I talk about me, which will be a lot, I'm going to talk about what we're going to do so you get a little sense of what our roadmap is today. I'll give a short introduction, then I'm going to tell you a story, and while I'm telling you the story, I want you to pay attention to a couple key points that I raised throughout the story. Then I'll talk about why me, why you, and why this very moment right now is so important, and ways in which you can get involved in the work that I do. And then I'll do a little closing. Sound good? Yeah? Okay, cool. So this is me and my wife, and then me speaking in front of the Supreme Court. In my bio, August mentioned that I grew up in Syracuse, New York. I went to Syracuse University. But a little bit more about myself and where I come from. I was a product of a young mom. She had me when she was in college, and so growing up wasn't particularly the easiest of upbringings, right? My mom didn't always know where food was coming from to make sure that her family got fed. I remember particularly as a young girl growing up when we would have to go to the food pantry, and I was so ashamed of my friends knowing that my family needed resources that I would duck my head under the van dashboard so that no one could see me going to a place in need. And I struggled with that for a really long time, and I convinced myself that the only way out of my circumstance, the only way out of poverty was for me to go to college. And in some ways I think that helps, right? That's a trajectory that a young kid can put in your mind, and that's where you go towards. And so that's what I did. I went to college, and in my first semester of college, I took a class in women's and gender studies. And we were talking about intersectionality and reproductive justice, and it was like these light bulbs went off in my brain. I was like, oh my God, that's my upbringing. That's my life. I live these things every day because my mom didn't have access to resources or access to government programs or access to just support systems in place to help families raise the families that they want. And so for me, that was a direct connection to want to get involved with Planned Parenthood. And so I did. I literally went online and I started Googling ways to get involved in reproductive health and rights. And I joined Planned Parenthood's activism work locally. And I really never looked back from there. I started a campus group on my college campus. And then I had the enormous pleasure of working at the national office as a volunteer and ran our first ever training series in 2012 and trained over 1,000 activists across the country. And now fast forward 4 years later, I continue to work with the organization at the national office and lead the programs that I used to volunteer for. So pipeline is possible, dreams are real, fight for what you believe in. It's super dope. So I'm going to share a little story, but before I do, I'm going to take a swig of water. So I mentioned when I went to college, I kind of came in with like a baseline knowledge of zero. I grew up in a household where my mom went to college and finally finished her degree after she had me, but otherwise, no one else in my family ever went to college. So it was like I was almost like a first-generation college student again. And it was interesting because I valued certain things more than others. I valued knowledge a lot. And one of the things that I truly, truly valued more than anything else was taking surveys. And I don't know, I can't tell you why this was something that I loved to do, but I had like tenets that I lived by. I was kind, I was always on time, I still am. I work incredibly hard, and I always took surveys. And I tell you this because the point of the story is that I took a survey. I was sitting in our student union center, and a young woman came by, and she had a very short quarter sheet and said, "Hi, are you available? Would you like to take this quick survey?" And I said, "Sure, of course. Like, I love taking surveys. You give, I give. So when I'm going around asking people to take a survey, you're going to take mine, right?" So I took her short survey, and as I read the first question, I realized the survey was entirely about God. It was my relationship with God and how I came to understand that. I took the survey, didn't really think anything of it because it was a survey, and I handed it back, and she asked, "Hi, can I sit down with you and talk to you about your answers?" And in that split moment, I had this I had a decision to make, right? Whether or not I would have her sit down next to me, or I would say, "No, I'm too busy, I don't have time." But I decided to have her sit down, and we just got into discussion. She had a friend of hers with her as well, an older gentleman, and the two of them sat down with me, and we started talking about faith and the answers that I put to the questions. And she asked for one of the questions, you wrote 0 on a scale of 1 to 10, your relationship with God. And I was like, "Yeah, I did. I didn't give you the answer you wanted." And she was sort of like, "Why? Why did you do that?" And I said, "Well, I don't have one. I have a relationship with myself." And that moment, she was like, "Huh? How could you have a relationship with anyone else first and foremost in your life other than a higher power, something else that has higher meaning than you?" And so for me, in that moment, I felt like it was the first time that I had affirmed an identity within myself that wasn't just about my belief in a woman's right to choose, or it wasn't just about having access to education and resources in life, but it was about something deeply inside me and about the autonomy that I have as an individual to decide my future. And so as we started talking in the conversation, I really came to tell her that the reason why I believe these things was because of my feminism. It was because of the practices and the beliefs that I held as an individual that I was able to craft my own practice, my own religion in a way, for lack of a better term, right? It was something that I truly believed in. And that moment has stuck with me ever since. I think back on that moment for a lot of reasons. One, because it taught me a couple of things. It taught me that feminism is my faith. It's something that I don't just say that I believe in. It is my practice. It is my belief. It is how I exist in this world. And it's not something that is determined for me. I determine this in community with others. And I think that that's important because we see that other religions and practices also do this. And I think that beliefs, particularly like feminism and other ideologies in the world, exist in this way, in a way that can be intersectional and address all facets of our lives. I also learned that giving grace to those with differing opinions than yours, above all else, is one of the most important practices. Because for me, in that moment, I could have said no. I could have said, "No, I don't want you to sit down. I'm too busy for you. Don't bother with me," right? But I did say yes, and she sat down, and it turned into one of the most interesting and pivotal conversations I've ever had in my life about religion. Because for one of the first times, I didn't feel attacked. I didn't feel like the conversation was going in a direction that I didn't want it to go in, that made me feel uncomfortable in a way that was unsafe. And so for me, I remember this moment as a moment in which it's allowed allowed me to identify and to say, I can give grace to others who don't have the same opinion as I do. And in a moment right now, where we have like Donald Trump as the possible president of the United States, like we need to start learning about how to give each other grace in order to live in a better world. And then finally, we may not believe in the same higher power, but we all live in this world. And we don't have a choice of what world we live in. We live in this one, and we have a choice to make the world that we live in better and more progressive and more kind and more graceful than any other world we've lived in. So for me, that conversation sticks with me because we were having such a peaceful dialogue that sort of recalled to me often what I say in my leadership work and how I train young people to become activists, that leadership, the definition of leadership that we use is that we may not know what the world looks like. We are organizing and enabling ourselves and others in the face of uncertainty. And so in that face of uncertainty, I may not know exactly what that world looks like, but I know what it feels like. And I want to be able to create that with others, even if we have differing opinions. So why me? What's the whole point? Like, why do I care about this story? And the first thing that comes to mind for me is like, if not me, then who? Then who's going to take on this work? Who's going to work to ensure that we live in a more peaceful world, right? That we're kinder to one another, that we listen, right? We take the time to practice listening. I also think it's important because actions speak louder than words. It's not just about the listening. And in a moment now, in this moment in time where young Black men are being murdered at the hands of those who are sworn to protect us, we have to start taking action and not just listening, right? Because as someone who's a white person, I have to speak up and not take up space, but I need to speak up to encourage other white folks to take action. And then finally, it's for them. So the kids on the screen there are my siblings, and it's really for them. I spent most of my adult life raising these 3 kids, and my brother just graduated high school, so I'm like a proud mom. And for me, it's about making sure that this world is a better place for them too, right? That they can grow up in a world that affirms them, that allows them to be empowered, and that they feel safe to grow and identify whichever way they choose. So why you? Like, why are you important, right? That's why we're here, I guess. So if not you, right, then who? Like, if we don't do this, then who else is going to? I say this a lot in youth movement spaces that we are not the youth movement, we are the movement, right? Like, we are not just a second identity or a pillar or group that's an affinity outside of the actual movement of people, right? We are the movement today. And if we don't take action, if we don't do something, if we're not in spaces like this creating community and making plans to take back home, then we're not doing it right. I also love this phrase, no one knows everything, but together we know a lot. And I think for me and how I think about what you can do and how you specifically can take action, it's by starting campus groups, right? It's by starting at the local level where you can have local wins. It's about taking on policy change, not at just the state level, but how can you change your campus policies, right? Because we know those are effed up. Like, we know that those are some batch of crazy. So how can we work to ensure that our campuses at the local level all the way up to the federal level are truly reflective of the people and the diversity that we hold in this world? So I think it's important not only for us to work in our individual campus organizations, but work together with coalition and partnership across our movement space. And why now, right? Like, I'm telling you, like, I don't want this to be my reality in like a few months. So we have to do this now because this dude is running for office, and that's wild, like so baffling to me. And we know for certain that and we've witnessed this on television, that he doesn't care about listening. He doesn't care about giving grace. He doesn't care about what anyone else thinks other than himself. And so when I think about a world that I want to live in, it doesn't have Donald Trump running this country, potentially running this world. Like, it really means that we live in a world where the people are at the center of Congress. hopefully. People are at the center of all of the policy change that we see in this world, that the people who are this country, are the bedrock of the United States of America, are truly progressing and moving our trajectory in a direction that we want to see, rather than what we're forced to believe is what is true. And then finally, I think what's important about why right now, we hear a lot about people talking about policy change. How many folks saw the 24, 26-hour sit-in with Congress? Yeah. So I went to the rally that was outside on the night of the sit-in when they first started, and I was like having this moment of reflection where I thought to myself, okay, like, good for you, right? I've participated in sit-ins, I've been at rallies, like many of my friends have, like, we're doing the work, so good for you, like, I commend you for that, but what else are you doing? Because that's not just enough. Like, I can't just have a racist gun reform policy in the front of our Congress, right? That's not enough. We need to do more. And so I'm thinking more along the lines of stories and how we change hearts and minds, because policy doesn't do that. It's not the policy that's going to change the people. It's the stories and the shared experience that we all hold together that are going to shift the perspectives of the folks that we love and care deeply about, and in this world that we care about. So finally, before I talk about some opportunities to get involved with our work, I just want to leave you with this quote that I think in a moment right now that I am holding, is that darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that, by Martin Luther King Jr. And I think we have to own this moment and this time where we have to take action and we don't have excuses, and enough is enough. Not only for what is currently happening in the world, but it's also for this movement and this moment in time that we're in to ensure that we are living in a world that we want to live in and not forced to live in. So a couple things of ways that you can get involved in our work at Planned Parenthood. A lot of our campus groups across the country are involved with Secular Student Alliance. They partner on campus, they start groups together, they're like collaborating like wildfire. So one of the number one ways that you can get involved is connecting with my team at the national office, and we can connect you with your local campus groups. I've got some business cards and contact information that you can take after this if you're interested, but that's like the number one way, is like find coalition partners, right? Get involved with other folks on your campus. Don't do this work in a silo. The second way is that we have tons of national network opportunities. We're a network of over 275 campus groups across the country with thousands of activists who are dying to make connections, to not only make connections on campus, but post-college too, right? Like in the working world, how do you create community in the values that you share? So that's the second way. And then the third way is to take action with us right now. You can do that by going online and liking our Planned Parenthood Generation Action Facebook page. You can do that by following us on Instagram or Snapchat or Twitter, and get all the latest and greatest, that was so cheesy, updates on the work that we do and how to get involved. Because not only do we send around petitions to sign and ways to alert your congressman or your representatives about the bills or policies that are being passed or that are not being passed, but it's also an opportunity for you to learn about national conferences that we offer and run, and our training series that we offer every year. If you're interested about training opportunities or conferences, come see me after. We have 11 statewide training opportunities this summer that we'd love to share the links with you and let you know about if you're interested in attending one of them. So that's it for me. I guess I can take questions.
Diversify the membership and just to encourage this feminism within our secular work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the best ways to start to diversify the work that you're currently doing is to bring resources to your current members. So educating current members on activism that's happening on other campuses that you want to reflect in your work. So I think that's the first step, because in order to bring new folks in, you don't want the old folks to steer the new folks away. So make sure you're educating your folks first. And then secondly, and actually you can do this at the same time, is showing up for other organizations, right? Like if you've got your Black Student Union on campus, or even other student groups, like perhaps you might have like, what am I trying to say? Like even other religious groups on campus that particularly have more of a diverse group of folks who attend meetings like those. You might want to go and attend other meetings, right? And just show up and like learn and see what other folks are doing on your campus. And I think that those are the first steps in order to build relationships, because if you're not showing up for other organizations on campus, then are folks going to show up for you? Probably not. So I always think those are the first steps to work towards diversifying your student group. Mm-hmm. Back there? Yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay. So I'm actually a director of the Planned Parenthood Generation Action at my university.
Awesome.
And I was supposed to go to a training conference, but I had to miss it and everything. So in your opinion, like, you have tips for, like, getting out there and all of that? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, what school do you go to?
Florida. It's in Florida State.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be in Florida next week at our conference. Well, I mean, tips for learning leadership skills and like trainings and opportunities like that, or
Just how to engage the entire community, because like I've been a part of other groups like that, and we always have something like that.
like how do you spread your message outside of just your student group?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one thing that I think is really great about college campuses, and mostly this could be spoken for, I guess, public universities, is that you have an opportunity to make it public and available to folks on, like, out in the community. You also have the opportunity to transcend, and like this is like, I guess, a theater reference, right? It's like beyond the fourth wall, right? Like go off campus and offer opportunities for your community. I think one of the best ways to do that is to partner with your local affiliate and ask them, can we do a community event? Can we do a bar crawl? Can we like go and like get other folks interested? Because that is more of an opportunity than to always keep your work in a silo. And I also think it creates opportunities to partner with coalition groups or outside organizations that you traditionally wouldn't have partnered with. Is there another question?
Oh, I just,
Yeah.
So I'm like 3 hours away. My city is 3 hours away from the closest Planned Parenthood facility, and so there's just like no activism to get involved because there's not really anything to be active about. I don't know, there's none. So how do you get? And I don't go to school in my city either, like where I'm from. So do you have anything for people who would like to see stuff like that happening in their city, even though there's no clinics or anything?
Yeah, so you definitely don't have to have a brick and mortar clinic in your city in order to get involved with Planned Parenthood. We actually have a campus group at Penn State, and if anybody knows about, does anyone go to Penn State or know, or like knows where Pennsylvania is? Okay, great. So there we go. So Penn State is like in the middle of nowhere, literally, and it isn't near a Planned Parenthood clinic. And we actually started up a campus group there about 1.5 years ago because we were like, this district is actually so conservative that is holding back like a whole section of the state. So we had to start a campus group to get a dialogue going in that community. It was actually really effective. They started organizing particularly on campus-based policy rather than organizing to change statewide policy, because it was hard to make that connection for students at first. And they've been working on campus-based policy to change whether that's birth control in the vending machines or opportunities to make sure that folks have access to resources on campus so they know that they're supported by Planned Parenthood and our values. So I think there's definitely opportunity to, even if it's just bringing the presence of the organization and the values to your current student group or your campus environment, that in and of itself is an opportunity to engage folks in a dialogue about busting abortion stigma, having conversations about reproductive health and rights and how that impacts your life post-college and in college.
And I don't think you have to necessarily have a clinic near you in order to start those conversations. So I'd be happy to connect you with possibly a new staff person. Okay, I have the stop sign, so I think I have to end here, but I'll be around. I have my card, so come check me. Well, come check me out, that was weird. So, but you can come say hi to me, and we can chat. Thank you.